afternoon, everyone, to another exciting episode of BWHR Voices. Today we have with us Miss Latha Iyer, CHRO Zaggle. Latha, we welcome you. It's a pleasure for us to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Sugan, for the opportunity. My pleasure too.
Thank you. So, we're discussing a very interesting topic today. It may sound very usual or very abrupt or very mundane, but indeed, it is a very specific topic that needs addressing. Is desk bombing the new effective office banter technique? Now, for those who do not know what desk bombing is, it is basically a metaphorical term that is used to describe a sudden and overwhelming influx of work or information that can disrupt somebody's productivity and well-being. Especially such a situation occurs in office spaces when suddenly a colleague or a friend, disrupts with their usual jokes, the chit chat, or sometimes a serious matter too, but it obstructs the flow of an employee's work, your co-colleague's work. Lata, what according to you is desk bombing? Of course, the literal definition now, everyone knows, and now that they know that what we'll be discussing. So, one, what is desk bombing, and what are some of the potential benefits of using desk bombing as an office banter technique? Because every aspect has two sides to it. While it has some negative connotation, but it also has some positive aspects as well. So, what, in your view, is desk bombing and its positive aspects?
So desk bombing basically refers to spontaneous, unplanned, or unscheduled visits by your colleagues at your desk. That's a
Okay.
simple definition. Just like photo bombing, it is uncalled for or unplanned, right? So these could involve, somebody reaching out to you for some pending work, or they wish to assign a new task, or they are seeking your support, or they want some clarification on something very
Hmm.
specific, or it could be simply a gossip that they want to engage with you on, right? So that is what is called as desk bombing. And honestly, Sugandh, this particular term has become a buzz, or has grabbed attention only post COVID, when all of us
Okay.
kind of resumed work, working from office, and we tried to adapt to the or readapt to the hybrid work model, because we got
Mm-hmm.
used to working in a certain way. We were working in isolation, we got used to a certain rhythm. Okay, we got set in that rhythm. Okay, so we a lot of people felt like I'm not able to focus as well anymore as I used to when I was working from home. I was a lot more productive at home because there were no interruptions. So desk
Exactly.
bombing became a buzzword only after COVID, and only after we started coming back to work from working from home.
Fair enough. And how, in your view, can companies ensure that desk bombing remains a light-hearted and a positive form of office banter? I mean, it shouldn't indulge into anything of a political agenda sorts that, a groupism begins, or, there is backbiting, and then there is constant, talks about some or the other employee, of course, at their backs. So how can
Yeah.
companies ensure it is a usual banter, a light-hearted conversation, because you do not gel with anyone and everyone in office. There are
Yeah.
always those one or two people, or sometimes even a group of people that you get indulged into, and you do not want to take your water breaks or loo breaks alone. You always want to
Yeah.
go in a group. So how can you
Yeah.
ensure that it is a light-hearted conversation?
Yeah. See, first of all, informal conversations at work is a must, as long as one is mindful about not crossing the line. Banter actually can be positive. Office banter or informal conversations can actually be positive and actually can help you build or develop fruitful, meaningful relationships. Because, if you're constantly only talking about work and not having a light-hearted conversation, you will never be able to crack that relationship. You'll never be able to build that trust. So it's as important as anything else,
Okay.
to be in an environment where there is informal conversation that's happening, right? You have a friend at work, you have opportunities to reduce your stress, you have opportunities to foster collaboration at workplace, opportunities to build your network, right? So And also the other positives are obviously, decision making is a lot more faster. Your access to information is a lot more faster. You don't have to really pick up the phone, dial someone's number for an information while you're just passing by. You just reach out to your colleague, hey, I needed something, can I borrow you for a minute, can I have your attention, and so on and so forth. So obviously informal conversations are important, but yes,
Of
of course,
course.
people have to be mindful about not crossing the line, right? So mindful of what conversations they are indulging in. They should obviously not be derogatory. They should not be discriminatory. It should not really be demeaning someone. So if an organization is able to ensure that this is a part of your culture, that respect is a part of your culture, or any concerns that are coming up are addressed effectively, you should be able to keep it lighthearted. So firstly, if you ask me what can organizations do, in
Mm-hmm.
my view, organizations should constantly seek to understand how employees are doing, right?
Okay.
How are they experiencing the culture at workplace? They should seek their suggestions, any improvement areas, or concerns that people have that needs to be addressed, right? So first, organizations should constantly look to understand how employees are experiencing the culture in the organization. Okay, only when you understand is when you can take any actions that may need your attention. That's one. Okay, so there are multiple ways in today's time. There are several ways to touch base with your employees, measure sentiments, take swift action on real time feedback. So I would say that gathering feedback is the first step to understand what people are doing, how are they doing, how are they experiencing the culture, right? Organizations can choose to explain what is desk bombing, because a lot of people may not even be aware of something like this, that I'm bombing someone's desk, I'm interrupting someone. So making people aware is something that an organization can do, and also see how it is being viewed or generally being practiced at workplace, right? People's opinions matter. If organization is able to seek people's opinion about their experience on this particular specific aspect, you will be able to know, okay, what's working, what's not working. So I personally believe that any intervention or program or anything that you wish to do should stem from data and insights that you're able to gather, and should have a very specific purpose in mind. Not because it's the it's a fancy thing, that's something that everyone's talking about, trending, so let's also do something about it. It should only stem from data and insights that you are able to gather from your organization, because it's very specific and unique to individuals. It's very specific and unique to an organization setting and the DNA of the organization, right? So so gathering information and then taking action is what I would recommend.
Okay.
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 And if the data that you're gathering, if the inputs and feedback that you're gathering, whether it's formal or informally, or trying to get this information, or that is stemming out of any corridor conversations that people are having, or that is becoming a source of conflict, it is imperative that you go deeper. Okay, imperative that you
Okay.
probe further to understand what are these themes, what is really coming out. Understand that issue in depth before you take any actions. So in my opinion, the best thing for an organization to do is be authentic and transparent about these issues and address it instantly, rather than brushing it under the carpet and not focusing on it, because this can become mammoth if you are unattending
And
or
in a way, as a management person, if you're not stopping it in the beginning, you're setting examples for other employees, also creating a culture that maybe it's okay. Maybe it is okay to
absolutely.
just bomb onto anyone, not seek their permission before, indulging them into any kind of banter. Of course, as you
Yeah,
rightly said, banter, informal conversations are important because they keep the office going. You cannot be working into a toxic environment wherein you can sit like robots in the morning and leave by five or
yeah,
six, just doing your work throughout,
yeah,
because
yeah,
then there is no creativity that is
yeah.
bridging gaps inside you. So
Yes.
but Lata, can desk bombing be used effectively in remote work environments as well, or is it primarily suited to in-person conversations?
Like I said, desk bombing became a buzzword only after COVID, because when
Okay.
the work setting changed. Okay.
Hmm.
So if you ask me, if one were to look at desk bombing, it could be anything that is unscheduled, anything that is an interruption.
Hmm.
Okay, even in work, even in remote work environments, this could happen, because if a colleague is suppose reaching out to you by any through any internal, mode of communication. Say, for example, Microsoft Teams or Slack, they're not really asking you, hey, do you have a minute? Or, hey, can we speak? They're directly reaching out to you, or something that's popping up, it's breaking your chain of thoughts, right? You're working on
Mm-hmm.
something, you're trying to focus on something, you've not put yourself on DND, or do not disturb mode, and people feel free to reach out to you, could be seen as an interruption. Okay,
Okay.
so it doesn't, it need not necessarily be a physical interaction. It could also mean in a remote work environment, someone is trying to reach out to me without, or spontaneously, without blocking some time, or without seeking uh,
Okay.
your permission or whatever. You don't really, when permission is too heavy a word, you don't really need to take permission, but you can always, as a good gesture, ask, hey,
Do you have a minute? You may never know that the other person might be into some flow that, you suddenly come and burst it.
absolutely, absolutely. So it's always courteous to reach out to people, but before reach. I mean, it's always courteous to reach out to people after checking if they are available.
No, that's a very valid point, and sometimes in office spaces, we do miss this aspect because you're suddenly so reachable to your other colleagues that you forget that there is
Yeah,
a thin line
yeah,
between taking them out for a walk or maybe bombarding them with work, or you suddenly break their flow of work. You
yeah,
never know what deadlines they're working on, and it's very
yeah.
important as a hygiene gesture to always ask, hey, do you have a minute or something?
Yes. So
And
sometimes what happens is, Sugandh, honestly, some of my team members, they reach out to me on Teams and ask, hey, can I come in? Okay. And
okay,
my personal style is, I tell them, walk in anytime. If I'm busy, I'll let you know.
okay,
Don't You don't really need to ask me. If I'm busy, I'll let you know that, hey, give me some time, I'm in the middle of something, I'll reach out to you, after maybe whatever, I'll give them a time slot. But I don't want them to every time seek permission before reaching out to me. Okay, so that is my personal style. But it's very, like I said, it's very individual specific,
exactly. It
right?
is person specific. Maybe I like that style
Yes.
of work wherein the person is just texting and asking me, "Hey, do you have a minute?
Yeah,
Can we go out? Can
yeah,
we talk?" or something like that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what could be some of the alternatives to office banter techniques that companies can use to foster a positive relationship or a work environment at work?
See, leadership has a big role to play. Leadership can actually
Okay,
make a real difference on a day-to-day basis on a day-to-day basis by setting the right example and tone. Right? The leadership
okay,
team, their conduct, their sense of humor, okay, their choice of words, the language that they use, the behavior that they demonstrate influences the workplace culture in a big way. Okay,
okay,
so leadership team should always make efforts to encourage, promote, and foster a safe, healthy, and fair environment. I think it's a lot to do with your leadership, and it really stems from the top, right? So for any technique of this sort, or anything to work, or anything to influence culture positively, it starts with the leadership. Okay, that's my opinion, right? So if the leader is um, assertive in his communicate, or in their communication, or is treating everyone with respect, employees are more likely to follow, right? Everyone starts treating each other with respect, teamwork is celebrated, that's when employees start respecting each other and treating each other very well, right? So that's one thing, right? And if you ask me, office banter techniques can actually be used to foster a positive and collaborative work culture. If you are using office banter for, say, ideating on something, or you
hmm.
are throwing a challenge at people and telling them to solve this
Huddle kind
problem,
of conversations.
yes, absolutely, you can crowdsource ideas. You can talk about a serious organizational level problem that you're dealing with right now. You can be
Hmm.
vulnerable about it, authentic about it, and ask your employees or seek their opinions. You never know, ideas can come from anywhere, right? So crowdsourcing ideas could be one of the ways in which you can use this entire thing very positively.
And considering that you handle HR domain of your organization, so what role should an HR department play in regulating the use of desk bombing and other office banter techniques? It's a very prevalent question because people at the leadership level are not always people centric, but HRs are supposed to be one of those management segment which is people centric. So then the
Yeah.
onus lies on HRs directly, that you have to maintain certain level of hygiene, but you
Yeah.
also cannot bombard into anyone's and everyone's conversations every time. Considering
Yeah.
employees always consider that within HR they always have a payroll sort of a relationship wherein they'll only go to problems to them when it comes to issues with their salaries or paychecks or payrolls or leaves or something like that. So how can you bridge that conversation with an employee and bridge this gap of regulating the use of effective desk bombing in an organization?
See, HR, of course, has a big role to play, whether it's desk bombing or anything, quiet
Mm-hmm.
quitting or whatever is the buzzword. If it's to do with the organization, if it's to do with culture, if it's to do with people, HR is right at the center, right? So, HR, of course, has a big role to play in creating a positive work culture in general, right? And this is obviously one of the most important and critical elements in attracting and retaining talent. Okay,
Okay.
so the most basic and fundamental part of this uh, would be for HR to be seen as a function that's objective and people that are a part of this function as approachable. A lot of these issues may not even come to HR. A lot of these, subtle things that happen in the organization may not even come to HR if the HR team is not really seen as a function which is objective and approachable, right? So
Okay.
that's fundamental, right? So that's one. And to ensure that desk bombing or any other such office banter techniques don't turn out to be negative or concerning, HR should make efforts to put the right guidelines in place, conduct trainings on very specific topics like interpersonal skills. People don't know, sometimes people don't know, so you'll have to kind of train them. You have to help them understand what can be effective as interpersonal skills: anti-harassment, right? Assertive communication, personal effectiveness, most important, emotional intelligence, right? If you're able to sensitize people on healthier ways to socialize, interact, or reach out to colleagues, I think that will be like a big thing that HR can do, or they can play an active role in driving the right kind of culture and behavior in the organization. And needless to say, HR department has to ensure that anything that is discriminatory or derogatory or tasteless jokes that are being practiced or personal
Hmm.
attacks being made are dealt with promptly. I think that's the biggest service that HR can do to an organizational culture, by ensuring that these issues are dealt with in a very prompt manner so that they
Okay.
don't continue or repeat, and you set the right kind of benchmark and standards in the organization or expectations with people, right? But the real question for HR and also leadership is to understand what are the dominant conversational themes that are running right
Exactly.
now, right?
You
If
need to be
someone is
mindful of
feeling,
the kind of conversations that are happening behind your back, good, bad, whatever, but then that will actually give you an outlook of what kind of culture are we setting within an organization. Is it only the healthy banter that we have or we can hear out, or is it something that maybe employees are facing issues with, but then they're not able to reach up to you as an
yeah,
HR person to
yeah,
resolve this issue, and within themselves they are actually trying to group, trying to sort out problem on their personal level,
yeah,
but then they're unable to. So you also need to be mindful of the fact that let's say for instance, if they're having issues with regards to posh, something
yeah,
very personal to them. So
yeah,
an
yeah.
HR's door should always be open, that of course you can have healthy conversations, but you always need to address this issue to somebody in the management so that they can help you in a better process and in a seamless manner.
Absolutely right. So that's why I said approachability is fundamental and it's like
Exactly.
very, very important. And also, it's important for you to understand who is feeling left out and why. How can we ensure that
Mhm.
everyone has an
Has an
opportunity to
opportunity to.
contribute to this informal part of the work life, right? If there is something that HR can do to foster inclusion, so things like that. And sometimes, like you rightly said, you may not be even aware, so it's important to understand what are these themes, what are the conversations that are running, what are prompting these corridor conversations? Is there something that we are missing out on? If, say, for example, you've rolled out a certain, merit cycle, and there
Mhm.
is a communication that's been rolled out, but you've not given people enough information about the framework or the logic that's gone behind those numbers, right? It's
Mhm.
important that you put all of these out there transparently so that people understand, and there is no room for gossip.
No, actually, that's a very valid point that you've made out, Lata. Thank you so much for shelling out information for your personal experiences and giving us the knowledge behind what exactly is desk bombing, how should it be practiced, and for people who are hearing it, we're not against desk bombing. As Latha very rightly said, informal conversations are a part of a healthy work environment. So desk bombing needs to be addressed. It is just an issue that needs to be addressed on where the line needs to be drawn. Doesn't mean that we cannot access or we cannot make effective use of desk bombing, because I asked her that pertinent question as well. How can it be, very descriptive and useful as well? And she's answered it the best possible way possible. Also, for people who have other queries, who want to ask something else into a banter technique, you can, tag her on LinkedIn. She'll be happy to help. She'll be happy to answer and to all your queries. But for now, thank you so much, Lata. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Sugandh, for having me.
Thank you.